because it wasn't a car that I built. Not like you got the flames and drive everywhere we are. This is the big announcement.
We'll get back to you when we have a name.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. If you're watching in the afternoon, that is, of course, and I always get trapped with that. So I've got a couple of special guests. I'm up here at Rose Hill in Sydney, and we're at the Hot Rod Show. It used to be the old Sydney Hot Rod Show, but it's now the Sydney Hot Rod and Custom
Auto Expo.
Be a big long one. So I thought I'd take the opportunity to catch up with these guys because they're the mainstays in the judging at this event. And I did that one with Owen Webb, and I'm fortunate enough to have with me today Greg Maskell. How you going, Greg?
Good.
And of course, Chris Bitmead. So the people that don't know these guys, I'm going to actually run some little photos and stuff of some of the cars they've had in the past. And in more recent times, it was, of course, XBOSS, the coupe that went to America.
Correct, yeah.
Both these Chris owned and was heavily involved in all the way through the build, and Greg, of course, at Maskell's. But prior to that, they had a lot of history, and I'm going to drag some of those photos up just so that I can let these people know that you just all of a sudden haven't popped out and decided to do some judging.
Yeah, sure.
So, look, thanks for coming along, and obviously judging is one of those things where there's always a massive amount of debate about how, why, who won what, why they won it, and I have a lot of that discussion with people, and I've never been on the other side of the judging. I've primarily been on the side where the cars I've built are being judged. But obviously you guys now have been on both sides, because going back 5 or 7 years, I think you're saying, you've been working with a group of people that's now down to a nucleus of 3 or 4 that have put together a process to be able to judge the cars in a very structured way. And without talking too much about it from myself, I'd like to throw over probably to Chris just to give us a bit of an idea of what you guys are up to. And this has been your main show that you've actually used this system at, and just sort of how it come about and the structure and how you make that work.
Sure. So I think it was Greg was the catalyst of us as a group getting together, and what we've sort of observed over the years is there's a number of different judging systems in use around Australia. Some of the systems are very, very structured, and some of them are not as structured or loose or
pretty casual.
Whatever. Yeah, very, very casual. So we felt that the structured systems that were in place were too structured and too prescriptive, to the point where people were building cars just to suit that rule book. You know, they'd put a fire extinguisher in because they knew they'd get 5 points, and they'd put reflective triangles in because that was another couple of points.
I've done all of that with the panel, back in the panel van days and the really early Australian Street Machine Federation days.
Yeah. So
that was exactly what we did. You know, my Burgundy car had the slide-out toolbox, and that was because there was points for it.
Yes, yeah. So we've tried to stick away from being a tick box system, like you know, like that would has sometimes been referred to, that type of system. We've also tried to build a system that's quite measurable, so allow people the freedom to build the cars they want, but allow the judges to be able to judge them in a very objective way. As much as and it's difficult saying objective because it's a very subjective thing.
It is, and I mean, I've often made the comment to the promoters and the magazines especially, is that they've been responsible for driving our sport in a lot of directions over the years.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because of either what they'll feature on the cover of a magazine or what will win at a show. And you go back and talk to the judge, they say, you should go and look at that car, and that's got something new and trendy that you might not want, but without it you're not going to achieve the thing. So I think there's been a lot to be, a lot of people have been responsible for the way our sport's gone. And when we did Tailspin, I spoke to Owen Webb then about I wanted to do like a satin undercarriage with stone guard, similar to what we've done on the last car.
Yep.
And pretty much told straight out, if you do that, you won't do any good because this is the elite of the elite and we want polished paint. Now, I just always looked at that and thought, how are we ever going to evolve and we're going to build these cars that aren't any value? So everyone has an opinion, and obviously you guys now are trying to put that structure together to be able to manage it.
Yeah, correct. So, and just picking up on that point, just using the analogy of an undercarriage with proof coat and painted and that, with the system that we've developed, we look at surfaces. So we don't care what that surface is, whether it's paint, polish, ceramic coating or whatever, we judge that surface for what it is.
For consistency.
Correct, yeah, for consistency and quality of application.
Yeah.
So if you've got under our system on a car that might have proof code underneath the car, if it's beautifully applied and it's very consistent, it won't get marked down too much compared to a car that's full cut and buffed.
Yeah,
polished.
and I mean, obviously we always look at the quality of the work, but obviously the quantity, in the sense that where we've come from when Greg and I started back in the 80s, and I believe yourself in the hot rod side of things, is that I always looked at it and said, what's Ronnie Barclay doing? I need to do more than that. So
yes.
you do more and you do more. 30, 40 years later, how much more can you do? And of course, we've seen this year at MotorX with the XY, at Forge, how much can you do? You know, it's like crazy.
It's like that in the trim world, like how much more could they do? And all of a sudden it's just jumped ahead leaps and bounds.
Yeah, and I mean, there's some amazing...
There's always more.
At this show, I must say that looking around and, you know, doing all the filming and all, the quality of the door trims, the finish, they're just unbelievable. And to be able to judge that, you know, and you'd look at, you know, you can go and buy a Repo XBGT door trim, or then you can go and spend hundreds of hours fabricating, custom printing, 3D printing, all that sort of stuff. So
yeah, and that's what we wanted with our system, something that could consistently look at every car on its subject or its part. And
I notice you're using tablets.
Yep.
You know, so digitised.
Well, we are. So we haven't developed, you know, the electronic system. So we're very thankful to the guys that run the show over in Perth. They developed the system, an online system, used the old ASRF judging criteria, and put that into an electronic format for the ASRF to use. So we basically use the same system, but we've replaced the ASRF judging criteria with the criteria developed in our system. So we haven't reinvented the wheel, but we've modified the wheel.
So to give people an understanding, because I know a lot of builders watch my show, and this one, you know, a lot of people watching this to try and get a bit of a feel for what it's about, because I've been aware of what you're doing, but not really understanding. And my understanding at the moment, you're at a stage where you've got a structure there, but it's not a commercial operation as such. It doesn't have a...
No, and from our perspective, it was never intended to be a commercial operation where, you know, we're guns for hire as judges. The intent was to develop a system that we want to test and make sure is working fine, and then offer training to people who want to be able to use the system, and then show promoters around Australia can then use that system along with the trained judges.
So where are you at now? So are you at a point now where are you done? Is it ready?
We're very close to that now.
We need some more people trained with our system, which we have.
The system itself you're comfortable with?
Yeah,
very 100%. And obviously we had some discussions prior that, you know, you're comfortable in the sense the feedback you're getting from the participants and the promoter that it's a pretty good system. I mean, you can't please all the people all the time, but the idea is to try and have a point where it's a pretty good system.
Well, so far we seem to have pleased most people. Yeah, it's really good, like, because the feedback we've got is all positive. Nobody's sort of...
Because, like, you know, you and I have been around a long time, you know, directly, it's getting that way, isn't it? Really involved, though, at a point where you are in contention on a regular basis with a car, whichever car that may be, and not understanding the result. And I mean, to me, I always say to people, if you don't like the judging, go and race where the first one over the line wins, because there's no doubt. You know, go drag racing or circuit racing or sprint cars or something. In our game, it's always been about the systems would change. You know, everywhere you went, you go to hot rod shops, hot rod judge, you go over here, and Somerset's judge, you go to Western Australia. You know, I went to Motivation a couple of times. They all had their own systems. And at any given time, as we've seen here now, there's probably 10 cars here that were all competing against each other at MotorX. Now they're being judged under a totally different system. There'll potentially be different winners, but I always see that as a bit of a benefit because it shares it around a bit, but as long as it seems fair. Sometimes you look at a car and you go, how did that win engine? You know, it's like crazy.
But if the judges can support what their decision was, well, that's a good thing. That's what it all comes down to. So it doesn't matter what show you go to, if the judges can say, right, this is why I've chosen
and I think the thing there is, Greg, is, as you guys have acknowledged to be what you're doing, is that for the judging team, they're given a criteria initially and a classification for the car. and then some guidelines, and in some cases not a lot, and in other cases a clear direction about what that promoter or that event is looking for in relation to their show. And I mean, just, you know, since Christmas I did Summernats, and I went to Show Cars Melbourne, then I went to MotorX, and then I went to the GT Nationals, which is another totally different ball game, and now I'm here. And it's really interesting to talk to the builders and the owners and to get the feedback, and that's why I thought it would be interesting to have this discussion and talk to you guys about it, because people are investing a massive amount of time and a massive amount of money to build a car. And when someone says to me, oh, I didn't build it for trophies, well, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
You know, if you turned up, with the ropes and the lights on and the signboard out, you're really looking to display the car nicely, but in all honesty, you'd like to think you got a chance of winning something.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've seen you do it with a couple of cars.
Yeah.
I did it when I built my Mustang. I said I don't want it judged, and I took it to the first MotorX that it went to. And Owen tried to get me to get it judged, and I said, I don't want it judged. So I didn't build it for the judging system, but I want people to see the car because I'm really proud of it and happy with it. And that's probably the only time I've ever taken a car without an expectation.
So I mean, it's really important. You went to?
Sorry?
Was that the most enjoyable show you went to?
Well, no, I don't know. I mean, Chris, I think I've spent, you know, my biography is called Trophy Hunter. I mean, that was why I built cars. And I've never been a driver of my show cars. The Mustang I did drive a lot. And I bought the old 63 Fairlane back and had it for 3 years and put about 8,000 Ks on it. But it was already half worn out. But I mean, my involvement in the sport has always been about building a car that looks good on show, and you know, the reason I had all the wild graphics and all is I didn't have to drive it down the shop. You know, it wasn't a car that I built, not like you got the flames and drive it everywhere. So I mean, everyone's different, but what people didn't realise, I always had the drive car. You know, I had some really nice drivers. You know, I had a really nice AU3 and all sorts of other cars, and I drive my Ute now, which I really enjoy having and driving, having people comment on the street. But it's not a show car. And I always had that difference. So
I've always define the two.
And driven by that. So where we go from here then, guys? So you've got a system that's pretty much done. Are you openly making it available now to promoters if they want to try and use that?
Yeah, we're probably at the point now where we can, and
a lot of grey here, Chris.
We haven't.
It's like nearly funnies, nearly.
No, well, we just haven't done it yet. I mean, we're not. We've never seen this as a commercial venture for us.
I think the problem with us was, we developed the system pre-COVID. COVID hit, and some of the shows didn't keep going.
Well, they just haven't. Unfortunately, we've got a couple of shows that I'd like to see back up that have gone missing, you know, with Melbourne and Brisbane. And
we had some interest from Melbourne and Brisbane and other places, and our design, our judging system is designed for an undercover show, not just a Saturday driving.
The weekend, you know, like cars and coffee or whatever.
We could do that, but it would have to be a smaller amount of cars because we cover the whole car. But we're ready to go. But now we need to have a few more shows come on board, you know.
But what I'm saying to you is, if there's a show promoter out there, you know, who do they call? Is there a name for the process, and how are you going to take it forward? If you've got to a point now where we're ready to go, and you've done this show, this is the third year?
This is the third year for Sydney, correct? For
Sydney, correct. So I'm sort of looking at it, I guess, trying to put a bit of pressure on you guys. Where's it at? And if there's a promoter out there that's running a big indoor show that says, you know, like, okay, it's not a big show, but say Paul Beck with his show down at Illawarra and says, hey, that'd be cool. You know, it's 30, 40 cars, it's a cool show, and they're all hand-picked.
Yes.
Are you ready to go?
Yes.
That's what I'm sort of looking at.
This is the first time at Sydney that we've used the electronic judging system. So last year everyone was running around with bits of paper, and I'd spent hours after the show putting the data into
which is always a chore.
So it's a huge chore. So so this is, like I say, first year we've used the electronic system. It seems to have worked well. We'll find out in a few hours. See what the feedback's like. Anyway, so it is evolving. The software itself is that holds the system in it is we've licensed it to the WA hot rod show guys who they own
originally come up
the
with
software. Yeah. So any arrangement to use the software would have to involve them as.
Yeah.
As
so
well.
I'm just looking based on the fact that we're aware it's there. You've got to this point now. I guess I'm just trying to.
We don't have a name for it yet.
Draw a line in the sand and say, hey guys, right, are you ready to go? Let's go. Let's make it happen.
We haven't came up with a name. I don't think it's ever really been on our radar to call it something.
Yeah.
I know where you're going with this because we probably should have a name so people could say.
Well, it could be ABC judging system,
Exactly.
but I'm just looking at it so that
That's
I've
what we
been
need.
hearing about it for 7 years and having discussions with you in the last couple of days is that it's pretty much ready to go.
Yeah.
So.
We wanted to make sure that we tested it before we announced to the world that it is ready to go.
Yeah.
And we're pretty much getting to that point.
So here we are. This is the big announcement.
We'll get back to you when we have a name. We will let you know that.
So, moving on a little bit, while I've got you guys here, and just moving on a little bit from the judging, because I think we've pretty much exhausted that now, but I'm blown away, because I'm doing the channel now, I'm obviously doing all these shows, and I'm very thankful for Lovells for their support that lets me do that. But I mean, getting to so many shows, and I now have to film every car. The quality is amazing.
It is.
The level, I don't think I've seen our side of the sport so healthy.
Yeah.
Like at the this indoor elite level, I'm just really blown away.
It's almost like every weekend there's a car show somewhere. Like that's how strong this.
And an unveil. What 5 here and some really a couple of really spectacular cars.
Yeah, really spectacular.
And then I'm seeing innovation. One of Owen's words, innovation. There's a bike up there, like an old school bike on a pipe display.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
Oh mate, go and have a look.
Really?
The detail, just the fuel cap on it.
Yeah.
The work in it, and conceptually to look at it gives me goosebumps.
Really?
And I just, I look at everything, and then I see you peeking at a Porsche there today, and it's sort of like, oh, look at that bracket, look at the way they've done that, the door frames on that car, they've drilled all the holes in it for weight. I just go, man, there's just so much to see and take in at these shows. It's unbelievable.
And these shows are great because they've got bikes, push bikes, cars, all sorts of cars.
Everything.
Like everything.
And then what about Aiden's, the coach work? We've all been watching on Facebook, and there it is in a whole car.
And when you stand next to it, it's massive.
Huge.
I know. It's just so, I'm so stoked to see, what I see is what I'm trying to bring to the people, our side of the sport, what we've always done. Is so healthy and so strong, and there's so much variation. It's just...
The variation is probably the biggest part, especially with our judging system, because you've got to be able to judge all of the different styles,
well, I mean, I was talking to you this morning about that really nice Prem, the light blue Prem.
Beautiful.
Fully restored, and the guy just so knowledgeable about the whole car and the build and all, because it's a Holden, I'm a Ford guy, and he's telling me all about the parts catalogue and just so into it, and it just makes me so happy to be part of all of that. And to see all these guys from a fully restored car, and then you get something like that, the 49, the single spinner. What I class as an event car, blown inject light, and everyone knows I love spinners, and it's just like, whoa, it's just unbelievable.
It's a really cool car, isn't it? And that's what I mean. Like when you go to events like this and you see that variation, it's really good. It's nice that we're building all different sorts of stuff now.
All right, well look, we might get out of here because these guys have still got some presentations to do. I've got people to talk to and things to film, and it's busy. So thanks for joining us on the channel, and we'll get this up shortly, and we'll continue to try and bring you people like Chris and Greg. Thank you for your time, and thanks everybody for being with us. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.